unfortunately, the switcher just decided to just poop out on us, so I'm not able to switch the angles on my phone. So I'll be looking that way a little bit, just switching the angles on the cameras, just in case, you're talking to me and I'm looking that way. I'm not being rude. I'm just over there trying to produce the podcast while we're having a conversation. So
you have this to look at. That'll be awesome for you.
There you go.
That should keep you occupied for about 3 seconds.
you ready?
Born ready.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Daily Carry Podcast, episode 74 today. We're excited to have a guest with us this morning, gubernatorial candidate Joe Oltmann, also an entrepreneur, owns 3 gun stores, tech companies. He has been there. He's done that, a man with a lot of experience under his belt, and we're excited to have a conversation with him today. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for being on the show with us. We're excited to have a conversation with you, sir.
Good to be here.
Let's not forget the 4 dogs.
Oh, yeah, a guy that owns, a guy that has some dogs.
I'm just saying that might be the single most important part so far.
That
I've heard.
is true.
A man that loves 4 dogs has already got my attention.
Hunting dogs.
There you go.
Hunting.
And a corgi.
What breed are the hunting dogs?
Yellow Labs.
Yellow Labs. Love it.
Corgi,
Can't go wrong.
Corgi keeps them in check.
Man, the corgi was just for my wife, and then she just fell in love with me, which is weird.
Of course. That's usually how it goes. My wife wanted 10 kids, and every time, we had 2, and then every time she wanted a third, I brought home a puppy.
Yeah.
So at one time we had 5 dogs, me and 2 kids. But she married way up.
So we're excited to hit the conversation, hit it hard, and just start rolling quickly. I've saved some articles here to the Daily Scroll. Our audience has become accustomed. They know that we scroll so that they don't have to. I've saved this article from Wall Street Apes on X talking about you and talking about proof that you've brought to light that Democrats are stealing elections with Dominion electronic voting machines. There's an article here. I'm going to overlay it onto the screen so other people can see it, read it for themselves. But, Joe, I'm sure that you're familiar with this and you're familiar with exactly what they're citing here. So why don't you just talk to us a little bit about that for a second?
Well, I think that so Wall Street Apes has done a couple of kind of blow-ups of the people that have gotten involved in things. I think this one was about when I went to D.C. on the first part of January. And in December, kind of going back a little bit, I got sued by Eric Coomer at Dominion Voting Systems. So there's no desire for me to get involved in election fraud. But being a tech guy, I think that there's a little bit of providence in all the things that we experience. And so in November, obviously we saw what happened. I came out on November 9th, November 6th. I was up elk hunting. It was kind of a, do I or do I not come forward? Then Coomer said that he wrote an article in the Denver Post and said that I just made it up and that none of those posts were his. And then from there, I got sued on December 23rd. But just before that, when he said, I didn't know anything, I didn't sue. I mean, I didn't fix any election. I didn't say this. I wasn't on a call, and all these posts were just manufactured. So what I did is took all the manuals, I took the RFPs, RFQs, all the stuff I could get from multiple states, and I compressed it together. And then because all the states have their own autonomy, they have their own election systems, and so if you're able to take that information, turn it sideways, and you'll be able to see the holes.
Sure.
So I built this model, and I sent the model to a bunch of guys in D.C., and I was like, listen, this is what's going to happen in the runoff election in Georgia. And they're like, oh, can you come to Washington? And what I didn't know before I went is that you had the NSA and the ODNI, you had all these guys, all these teams that were working on the election fraud in different states, but individually states. So they would look at how the data came across in each one of these individual states. Well, I looked at it completely differently. I looked at it from the standpoint of, could Dominion fix elections? So when I built this model, I had the 6 points of failure inside of the model. When I went to Washington, I was like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have the Republicans winning. The Democrats or the system's going to go down. It's going to come back up. When it comes back up, it's going to flip, and the Democrats are going to win. And then I walked through the different pieces and parts and why that's possible, and the phantom votes and the fraudulent votes. So you have mail-in votes that basically are just gas to the machine. So when I did this, and on January 5th, as you'll go through and listen, you can listen to what I said on this deal. it happened. Like everything that I said would happen, happened. And so as a result of that, they called me at 2:00 in the morning and said, come back over to the hotel. So I did. And this is after they grilled me. I mean, literally, you'd have different people. John Eastman, obviously, he got disbarred in California. And you had other guys that will remain nameless right now. I keep asking them, I said, can I use your name? And they said, how did you know? And I said, well, I'm clairvoyant. Like the system is what the system is. I'm a system architect. I understand how systems are built. And they said, well, we need to have you go to the State Department. We need you meet with Pompeo. Will you meet with Pompeo? I said, absolutely. Will you meet with President Trump? Yes. And so I went to at the same time everything was happening on Jan 6th, I was in a skiff at the State Department briefing counsel for Pompeo because Pompeo snuck out the back door. And I was with a high-level individual who was appointed by President Trump in his first term, who was a deputy secretary of state and in the region of Africa. And as I went through all the information with counsel for Pompeo, have you ever been in a skiff? Have you ever been in a skiff?
Yep.
Okay,
Several times.
So it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
The temperature's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool, right? And he's sweating. And then he asked me a question. He's like, why would they do this? And he looks up at me, and that's when I knew that he knew that I knew that he knew the election was stolen.
How many votes?
More than 2.7 million.
Okay.
30 million? 40 million? See, the way PID controllers or energy decay models work is you have a fixed point outcome. So if you ever have a thermostat on your house, and say you set it at 70 degrees and it goes to 69 or it goes to 71, it constantly is doing this. So if you look at the way the votes came in using cast vote records, which now they want to keep away from us, and now they've decided to scramble them because if you have the line of how things go in, there's a way that elections randomly occur. So if you were to line 100 people up in a row, you wouldn't say, okay, 70 Democrats are in line. And it wouldn't happen across every single election. You would have a Democrat, a Republican, a Republican, a Republican, a Democrat. It'd be random. But the elections in our country at every level are not random. They're created out of thin air. Now later, the model that I used in this was proven when we got into Maricopa, when we got into Mesa County, when we got access to the machines. And they're like, well, how did you know this? And I'm like, look, if you look into the system itself, it will tell you where the cheats are. And then if you look at the anomalies that happen on November 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that will actually tell you a story of how many different ways they can manipulate the machine in order to get an outcome. So in Wisconsin, you had the flash drives, right?
Sure.
You'd put it in the machine, and then she got in the car. It was this big production. Took it from the machine, walked, got in the car, cop car, drove all the way over, and all of a sudden she lost it. And they got a phone call that said, oh, yeah, you left it here. Well, how did she leave it here when it was on video that she was getting in the car with the flash drive, with the thumb drive, and then all of a sudden they have the thumb drive again? So you can manipulate it so many different ways, but it all comes down to the system architecture being designed to be able to steal elections.
Sure.
And because it goes from Dominion or ES&S, and here's the other part, ES&S, Smartmatic, all of those companies, they share the same substructure. So the foundation of all of those different organizations have to still flow through to Seidel. Seidel then has to go to Edison. Edison then goes to all the news sources. Well, we have never even had a conversation about Seidel or Edison. And part of the reason why we don't is because how they receive that information allows them to know what they need later on, which is why you saw what happened in Michigan, what you saw happen in Pennsylvania, Florida. Everyone says, well, Florida elections are safe and secure. No, they're not. There's not. I'm gonna say this, and some of your audience might think I'm crazy. There is not an election in the entire country that is not fraudulent. There's not one. There's not one election in the country, unless it is done by paper ballot, hand count, tallies are done, human eyes are on it, that is not fraudulent.
I said that last night. I didn't say everyone is fraudulent, but I said last night, talking to Kirkmeyer.
Yeah.
So the only way that I know to do this is in person with an ID with a physical count.
How'd she take that?
Actually, she took it well. She agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, she agreed. She said, I'm there. And I made a point of Dominion advertised what they were doing. It was on their logo. We changed the way it votes. It goes in blue or goes in red and comes out blue. No, but it's funny because when you look at it, if that's truly what's happening behind the scenes, they're claiming it. I mean, that's plausible deniability to me.
You think there's cheating going on both sides? You think that it's both sides trying to play this system?
I think they're both in on it.
How would we be able to? You're running for governor here in Colorado. What's the game plan, the strategy to actually make your run legitimate? If there's this kind of level of fraud going on, we just got to make it too big to rig. Focus on voter turnout.
There's no such thing. President Trump is an anomaly. He's not. I mean, there is no other President Trump. And one of the fears I have is who comes behind him that has as much courage and conviction that he has. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no bench. There's no bench behind him. But if we don't get rid of machines and mail-in ballots, if we don't pass, the SAVE Act will take out 60% of the cheat because it eliminates mail-in ballots en masse in the state of Colorado, California. You're going to see lots of states change just based on that because they're not going to be able to keep up with it based on how quickly in unison. The bad part is that the many primaries are going to be cheated because the primaries are still going to have these machines in place. They're still going to have a way for them to manufacture the elections. As you start looking at the election infrastructure, though, specifically in Colorado, no candidate on our side is going to win if we don't get rid of machines and mail-in ballots. Period. End stop. Except for ones that they want to have win. Oh. And if I'm wrong, then how did the school board in Douglas County turn completely blue?
Lack of voter turnout?
Well, you could say that, but...
Well, I mean, I am saying it because the numbers were ridiculously low.
But you don't know if the numbers are because they can actually manufacture the numbers out of thin air.
So if the numbers are coming out of thin air, then what's the point would be the people's question. If I'm a tax-paying citizen, I'm sitting out here, and then I've been saying all along, man, I'm not really sure my vote counts, but they don't have your tech, your background, your information. They're doing it from the standpoint of, I just don't feel like my voice is heard anymore. And then you extrapolate it out, you add this information in that you just threw out there. Now they're definitely going to double down and go, well, what's the point? What do you say to them?
So the point is that you have to be able to participate in the machine, or we can't figure out where all the rigging happens and who's responsible for it. So it's the American people's responsibility to fight through it. This is one of the biggest problems I have when President Trump was elected again in November. Right? Everyone went back to sleep, sat on the couch, decided, okay, he's got it handled. Well, the reality of it is we spent the last 4 years fighting in order to get President Trump back in office for the third time, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody just said, okay, we're going to let this man handle it. If you want to have a seat at the table, if you want to have a voice, then you have to act like it. So there's other people out there that are actually doing this fight. I've given up 6 years of my life. I live in a house with bulletproof glass, thermal cameras. Mm-hmm. My wife's been attacked. My children have been attacked. This has not been a fun 6 years.
Sure.
But so I'll do some work on my side. I'm not expecting everybody to do their work, but I say it over and over and over again. If you don't vote, you're contributing to the ability for them to steal the elections. You can make it too big to rig. Never. But you can actually make it much more difficult for them to actually, because they can just throw away votes. I mean, the U.S. Postal Service, if you look at the windows inside of the votes in Colorado, they can tell which ones are Democrat, which ones are Republican, just based on the envelope.
Well, of course. And when you go to the DMV to register, if you don't claim either, you go unaffiliate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the ballot going out, everybody knows who's what.
Yeah, but there's
By the way, did you know I got 3 for each of my family members?
You did?
I did. So 4 family members, I got 12 ballots in the mail in 2 different days. I took it down to DC clerk, and they went, that shouldn't have happened.
This just happened in
this past election. I kid you not. I literally opened up my mailbox, and there were 3 Micah Richardson ballots. Same ballot. No, I'm not talking for different things. I'm saying a duplicate, triplicate. Yeah.
So how many times do you think that happened if it happened to you?
Well, I brought it up last night, and it was interesting because when I brought it up to Barb, I said, in hindsight, I wish I had actually signed all 3 of them with different signatures to see if somebody would catch it. Like I was kind of being tongue-in-cheek about it. But actually, I'm not being tongue-in-cheek about it now. I'm sitting here back thinking, well, number one, why did it happen? Why my family specifically? And everybody got 3. And when I took it down there, they just kind of blew it off. But at the end of the day, it really bothered me. And now that I look back at it, I go, I'd love to test drive that system just to see how they can authenticate it. Because if I did 3 different signatures on my name, would they have caught it? I'd have been the perfect test bed.
So don't be the test. There's plenty of other people that off this show can be the test. But if you say this on the show, obviously this apparatus of our government will come after you.
Oh, I understand that. And she said the exact same thing. Yeah. But it's still the government that jacked it. And I'm test betting this this deal. So yeah, well, first of all, I didn't file all three. I went down and handed it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tina Peters is in prison right now for 9 years, while
Yeah.
people that traffic fentanyl and kill people and try to abduct children are out on the streets. So
Sure.
the system is not designed for the have-nots.
I get it.
So back to the question of, you just now said, without removing the machines, there's not going to be a candidate on the Republican side of things that's going to be able to win a state like Colorado. What do you think the path to actual victory looks like? How do we win? Is that even possible to remove the machines? If the SAVE Act passes, do you think that gives us some steam, some extra fumes to run on to potentially get a win in Colorado? What do you think a legitimate path to victory looks like in Colorado right now?
Well, if we go back to November of 2024, President Trump won that race. Well, Elon Musk at 5:30 in the afternoon, before all the tallies were done, said it's done. President Trump's going to win. How did he know?
How did he know?
Well, I'm under pretty good authority that they were able to interfere with the ability for them to swap the machines, go in and change votes, and basically use this stored procedure that, by the way, can erase itself in order to change the outcome of the election.
Wow.
So I that's not theory. I didn't make that up. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but I can tell you that the ODNI report, the reason why it wasn't released is because it would have been a shock to the system for everyone across the country. And the Democrats would have used it for some sort of ability to say that, President Trump's a dictator and he's going to use this to basically take over. We have 12 or 13 different whistleblowers that are stored in different areas that Patrick Byrne has put all over the country and all over the world, that are whistleblowers that participated in the stealing of elections, not just in the United States, but in over 70 other nations around the world. Now, with that said, Colorado is an anomaly because of how quickly it went from Republican to Democrat. And it happened literally overnight. I mean, 3-4 election cycles?
Minimum, yeah. I
Yes.
mean, there was a slow roll coming into it, but then it just wildfired.
Well, when we made universal mail-in ballots,
Sure.
which was 2006, everything went blue.
Yep.
At least all the parts where they could at least justify that, Denver's all going to be a Democrat-ruled environment. And if you look at the last 8 years, they've taken more and more ground in even the rural areas and in areas like Douglas County. So, I say, but God, right? And I say that kind of I believe that, but God, President Trump won in 2024. And I think I have to rely on faith and the fact that I'm willing to do the work. And there's a lot of other really good men and women that are doing work in order to secure the vote. President Trump's going to make sure that SAVE Act gets across the finish line. And if it doesn't, he has this other thing in his back pocket, which is called the Insurrection Act. So I don't think he's going to have an appetite for there to be mail-in ballots in any of the elections across the country, unless it's in cases of being incapacitated, travel, so on and so forth. That's going to represent less than 1% of the vote. So if we can get people to go out and vote, and if he does what he's supposed to do, and we do what we're supposed to do, and we act as if those things are going to be put in place, I think we'll have a pretty good shot of changing the dynamic and the direction of.
I did just see that John Thune. That's his name,
Thune.
right? Thune.
Yeah.
He is supposedly, there was somebody who just said it was just, I think, a couple hours ago, that he's pushing it through to actually be voted on. So it's not going to sit and wait any longer. It's supposed to get voted on quickly.
Good.
So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm glad that you said, but God. This is the Daily Carry podcast, and the most important carry since the very beginning. I mean, we put a gun, we put a knife, that's all on the logo, but denying ourselves, carrying our cross, and following after Jesus, that's what we're all about. That's what the entire intent and purpose of the show is to bring all this to a faith perspective. It's to point people to Jesus. I don't have any interest in pointing people to the Republican Party or pointing people to Donald Trump. I have interest in pointing people to Jesus Christ. And that being the case, I want to talk to the climate in Colorado, because it really is, it's wickedness. It's evil. If we're just to look at the policies that they continue to put into effect, the bills that are literally sitting there right now, the ones that continue to be signed and written off by Democrats, and then the ones that continue to be presented by Democrats, they are signing against bills that would protect children, and they're signing for bills that are putting children at further and further risk of being groomed, of being abused, of being mentally ill. And I mean, there's a bill sitting right now. They're trying to legalize prostitution, all kinds of stuff. But I saved this article that you just posted. This was from you yesterday. This was a great way to kick off this conversation. And you said on this post, double standards in schools, crosses banned, prayer rooms for Muslims encouraged. I wanted to talk about this because we see this theme across the nation right now where Muslim religion is really being pushed and embraced, and they're pushing Christianity to the sidelines. They're discouraging it, but they're bringing in Sharia law all over the place. And it's a real concern, especially for a state that's so blue like Colorado, that they're pushing all these woke agendas. And of course, now one of the biggest concerns we have, they push Jesus up. They'll put their rainbow flags up on the wall, to put their pride flag stuff, and then they'll create opportunities for Muslims to be able to practice their faith, but trying to push out Christianity, just trying to demoralize us to the point where we are just beaten to a pulp, desensitized, numb.
It's marginalizing. So they want to marginalize our faith,
Of course.
right? And in doing that, they weaken I've seen these ops happen before. You saw it happen with the Coptic Christians in Egypt.
Yep.
You saw what they did in Sudan, South Sudan, Sudan, and then
Period.
South Sudan, obviously. When they basically said this is a Christian nation, Christians are being slaughtered in Darfur. I mean, I could point to a number of operations that have happened around the world where we basically destroyed the sovereignty of nations. That our apparatus, our security, our intelligence apparatus had purposely gone in and destroyed nations and killed millions of people. Now, as we come back to what's happening to the Christian faith here, there's another component where they bully people. They go after their families. They go after their businesses. They have made examples of people like Tina Peters. They've made other examples of pastors that stand up where they'll basically go out and either burn the church down or threaten the people like they did in Minnesota that were sitting in church, and Don Lemon came in and did the things that he does. So they create an institution of fear around standing up. And it's one of the biggest problems that I have is that Christians we're meant to be nice, we're meant to be loving, we're meant to live our lives in the image of Jesus. But that doesn't mean that we have to be apathetic and we have to watch this happen, right? We should be doing much more than what we're doing right now. And if it truly is evil, how do you drive evil out? You just say, hey, look, I know you're evil. Because what are they going to do? Go, oh, yeah, you caught me. You know what? I'm going to go hang out in the hole now that I just came out of because you found out I was evil. No, it's going to double down. It's going to tell us what it does. The Bible said it's going to tell us what it does, right? And so we have to be willing to stand up to it in a way that allows for that evil to be driven back. And we just haven't done that. We haven't done it. We haven't stood firm against this evil. And the way the left gets us is what they did to me when I said, hey, listen, I want these people tried for treason. If they're found guilty, I want them hung by the neck until dead.
Sure.
And you would say, oh, Joe called for violence against Polis. No, I called for accountability because it's not a victimless crime, right? And we should have more of this universal belief as Christians that we don't selectively look at the Bible and say, I'm going to only follow this one verse in the Bible, and it tells me that I need to turn the other cheek. That's not even what it means. It's like reading one chapter in a book and saying, I got it.
Yeah. The Bible also says, be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Yeah.
That's what we're called to do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I think you're right. There's definitely been a pattern of several years where too many Christian men have just sat kind of idly by on the sidelines, whether it's for just fear of the voices of the opposition being louder and maybe there being consequences with some of the examples that have already been made. But if we don't do something, obviously Sharia law is continuing to escalate in the country. They're going to make it to where actually living for Jesus and following Jesus, it's going to be something that's going to be harder than ever. And it's already hard. They've made it hard. I mean, my wife and I'm sure you see, we're running not just faith-based businesses, we run faith-first businesses. We've been attacked over and over and over because of it. Reviews, people online, we've had threats online just because of our faith. And we're in Douglas County, we're in Castle Rock, we're in a conservative part of Colorado, and we're still attacked. We're still judged before anybody even walks in. People will get online and go on campaigns just trying to smear us. They've never even been into our business. Thankfully, there's still some policies in place that gets a lot of these reviews removed if they mention religion or Christianity or politics. Some of the first calls to action that my wife and I felt is whenever Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we did we hosted a live stream of his memorial service here at the gym, and there was a lot of backlash for that, but there was also a lot of support for that. So I think that there's a lot of people right now that are wanting to do what we're talking about. I think it's maybe just having the right voices to say, this is what it looks like. This is how we fight for our country. This is how we fight for our state. This is how we get Colorado to repent and to turn toward God. This is how we, from the ground level, as believers, as Christians, this is how we engage in this warfare and we get involved in this fight and we don't sit idly by anymore. I think there's just a lot of people that are maybe needing somebody to say and show and lead by example, this is how we fight for the state.
I mean, I agree with you fully, and I think that good can overcome evil. So I'm gonna just something I wanted to consider, right? We can drop a bomb on people's heads a world away. Doesn't affect us. We don't even feel the ripple of it. But we'll allow really evil people to put guns to our children's head and say there's nothing we can do about it as they groom and indoctrinate our children into these schools. And how do you overcome evil when good is pushed out of those environments and told to sit on the sidelines? And by the way, we'll let you go into these town council meetings or school board meetings and beg for your rights, beg for the ability to protect your children, while we're watching our children literally institutionally be destroyed. So I think we have to my favorite Bible verse is Galatians 4:16, am I the enemy because I tell you the truth? And I think we have to get to a place where we start looking at this differently, that we are at war, and this is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual battle. And it's not just a spiritual battle when we're talking about Christians being killed in Nigeria and we're going to send in Delta Force to take care of them. We have a spiritual battle happening right here in our own backyard. And I think the strength that we have is we have to lead by example, because our children see us the same way that Martin Luther King talked about the next generation turning their back, because we have this apathetic way of looking at the what's happening in society. We've let the mores of society be driven by this evil, because we want to look good to avoid looking bad. We want to look good to avoid actually standing up and showing our strength. Because we're a very strong group of people, right? We just don't show our strength because we act like we're this elephant with a string tied to our ankle, tied to a fence that's not even in the ground. So we don't exercise, I think, what God's given us. He's given us this ability to fight. And I don't want to be violent, but Christians are capable of great violence. And we forget about that. We forget about the fact that in order to destroy evil, we have to apply force to it. Force does not mean you have to be violent. Doesn't mean you have to even kill anyone. You just have to be willing to defend what is yours. And in this state, we find this thing where we want to smile and nod and look, if what I'm saying is wrong, I have a lot of people that support me. A lot of people that watch my podcast, a lot of people that go to my business. I get the bad reviews all the time. I'm willing to sue someone on a dime. Like literally someone said a bad review, I don't get it taken down. I go straight to their house and I serve them with a lawsuit. And I said, I'll see you in court. And then they're like, oh, no, I'll take it down. And no, you're going to pay me $1,000 and then you could take it down. And so what happens is they start talking to each other and having this conversation. You say, why would you go and spend $2,000 chasing a bad review? Because I don't want evil to win, right? And I think we have to set a different standard by which we're willing. That's the only reason I ran in this race. We don't talk about the right things. We don't try to look at what's happening in the community. We don't look at it from the natural lens of what people are going through, not what Democrats are going through, Republicans. Nobody's happy. There's nobody in this state that's happy. Not Democrats, Republicans, Independents. The only thing we have is this apparatus of thirsty, evil, power-hungry people that are basically setting standards they're trying to destroy our communities, right? So I just think we have to look at it a little bit differently and consider that if we stand up in strength, like God can support us.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah. Well said.
9/11 happened. Towers fall. You just used the example of we can go over into another country and bomb it. We don't feel the ripple effect. I think 9/11 on a home front, I've said this so many times on podcasts, just north of 3,000 people died, and it was hard. I mean, on 9/11, I was actually flying to South Carolina. I think I was the first guy to get a ticket refund at Delta when the tower went down. I got in my car and I drove across the United States. I literally drove 26 hours to South Carolina, nonstop, didn't slow down, just put gas in my car. most surreal drive of my night. Nobody on the freeway, passing rest stops with 18-wheelers parked side by side, 3 miles long, with groups of people standing around in parking lots talking. It was like Armageddon. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what to think. Nobody knew what to feel. 3 months later, we forgot about it. Charlie Kirk gets shot.
Amen.
65,000, 75, whatever it is, goes and fills the Arizona Stadium. Another 50,000 outside. And how many millions online? And people can say what they want, but those two towers coming down, as bad as it was, and my heart breaks for all the families. I mean, that this was an attack on America. It's terrorism 101. And it's a tragedy in every way, and it crushed our financial systems for a while. There's a lot of things that came from it. Charlie Kirk died. It was like a piece of everybody died. It was like a human loss that everybody can relate to. It's hard to relate to big buildings coming down. I mean, you see it and it's bad, but it's not as personal as watching a guy, and you can't. That lives rent free in everybody's head. It's kind of like the girl on the subway train, right? That lives rent free, and for the rest of my life, I will never ever not see that look of sheer terror as she looks up at a 14-time felon. That the system judges should be held punitive damages, in my opinion. That's a whole different topic. But I say that to this. You want to change stuff in this country? You want to get rid of the nonsense, the silliness, the slap on the wrist, and the other? Make judges punitive. $1 million. Start at $1 million. You give a sentence to somebody, that guy goes out and does the exact same crime, the judge can be sued civilly. You'll see the stuff. It'll be eradicated in 3 months.
So I'm glad you said that, because then you're reading my mind. First of all, the Charlie Kirk deal, I put out this. I was at the event, and they said, "Hey, look, you can sit down here in this section, the VIP section." I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to stand in line with these people. I want to watch them."
Yeah.
I'm kind of the guy that wants to see how people are reacting to this. And I picked a seat at the very top of the stadium, and I wrote what's on it's pinned to my X account, and I just wrote about how I felt about when Charlie Kirk died, and it went viral. 2 million people or something.
2.6 million.
Yeah, so I left it there because I had this amazing amount of sadness, like the things starting to start, and then they started singing about, and you could just feel the presence in a place that frankly was really empty.
Yeah.
Right. And so it affected me in a way that I didn't expect it to affect me, because I didn't always agree with Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He didn't always agree with me, but he was an amazing man because he held a front that we didn't have to hold. He went into the schools, and now there's this vacuum that's been created. And frankly, it's left us again vulnerable in a place where we need that cover. Right, we need that cover inside the universities, and you can start seeing that there's just a lack of leadership now with Turning Point. Sorry, that's how I feel.
No, actually, I said that to Jared. Man, I don't know how many episodes ago it was. It was right after it happened, and I knew I was making a bold statement when I said it, and it was not a disrespect to TPUSA. It wasn't a disrespect to Erica. It wasn't disrespect to anybody. But there was only one Charlie Kirk. Yeah, and there's nobody on the. I mean, you said it earlier. There's nobody on the bench. What happens after Trump? I mean, I got a couple people in mind, but at the end of the day, there's not another Charlie Kirk, at least that we've seen,
right? That
can walk in and do things in the manner that he did. And there's certainly nobody over at TPUSA that can do that. I mean, or they'd be doing it right now. I mean, you would have, this thing would be up and running. So I'm very much in agreement on that. I think it's created a vacuum.
What is Turning Point USA?
It was Charlie.
It was Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So without him, you're exactly right. It's that vacuum. And I think it was also just the gruesome nature and how it went so viral. You couldn't get online, all platforms, without seeing this young man lose his life in an absolutely horrific way. I think that really just scarred. There's so many people in this country that haven't seen anything like that. That is a wake-up call to the evil that's in this world. And that vacuum, you're right, needs to be filled. And we need to make sure that we are somehow, some way, stepping up on an individual level for there to be a restoration of leadership. Universities, and then even before that, high schools, grade schools. Right now, education is a breeding ground for mental health in this country.
Yeah, so I want to kind of marry the two things together. First of all, it had a chilling effect because when I went to the TPUSA event up in Fort Collins, they wanted to put up glass. People were afraid to speak. it had a chilling effect on leadership or young people coming forward and feeling like they could be a voice of reason, right? So that part of the reason why TPUSA has not been the same is because much like the leadership we have in our country, we have very weak people that seek power. And people that really are powerful people don't typically seek power. They don't want to be in that position. They'd rather do things on the outside where they don't have to get dirty, right? So don't never wallow with pigs, right? But you said something about judges. They wanted to go after police officers, say police officers are the problem. First of all, my brother was murdered by a police officer in 2017. Knocked off a bike at 90 miles an hour, hit a wall, broke his neck, and died. It nearly cut him in half.
Sorry, dude.
When I was growing up, I hated police officers. I mean, I did. I mean, if they said 5-0, you're same generation. You run, right? You're getting away from.
Well, I ran and became one, so
Yeah,
I've done both sides.
And I have a lot of friends that are police officers. I have a lot of friends that are SF. I got a lot of friends in a lot of different environments. But I learned through many, many years that our problem is never the police officers. It was always the judiciary.
Every time.
And it became more and more rotted. And they have this thing called qualified immunity. They have the ability to be immune from any decision that they make. So one of the things that I said when I've gone to have these debates is I will take away the ability for judges to have immunity. I want them, if they send someone wrongfully to prison, they go to prison. If they do something to interfere with somebody's life, they should feel the long arm of the law against their neck.
Yeah.
And right now they are completely unchecked. And the judiciary in this country is in large part why we face what we face today, because it is so rotted to the core that it's a shell of its former self. And that's from lawyers and people that are involved in it. Look what they did to President Trump. You would say, well, some judges, most judges are good. So he just batted 100 with people changing the law, turning misdemeanors to felonies, to, deciding that, no, it's a fraternity. It is a crime family organization. And you have the Christopher Gregory case in the state of Colorado that implicates Weiser, Polis, 40 other defendants. And it was so damning that the AUSA basically said there's no there, even with recordings and all the stuff that they had, which I've covered on my show. And it's so damning. You're talking about $15-20 million in bribes that were paid, money that was taken off of that they basically did as entitlements and rewards for different settlements and different judgments. We've got to do something about the judiciary. If not, just throw it all out and start over.
I said, I've been saying this, I went to law enforcement in 95. I've been saying it since 96, what I just said. And I've gone up against solicitors, magistrates, you name it. I've sat down with them. Joe, I've never lost a case, not one. I had an exceptional FTO in law enforcement. The first thing he did is he dropped me off at the county courthouse. He says, I'll see you in 8 hours. Next day, he did the exact same thing. And I'm like, why are you doing this? He goes, I want you to watch how not to get your butt kicked on the stand because the system's going to be stacked against you. We used to have, as cops, we used to have immunity. We used to. And then they passed a bill not to do that. And everybody in law enforcement said, this sucks. And I was one of the few that stood up and said, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. There's got to be an accountability across the board on all things. When I first started in law enforcement, it was pre-body cam. And when they started introducing it, and it's not because cops were doing something wrong. They're just like, oh, I don't want to be watched on every little thing that's going on. I'm like, I do. I took every single time I got into a car chase or every single time I arrested somebody, I had a dash cam in my car. I literally went to Walmart, rigged them out, put it on my window. And then when Yin Yang would say, well, that's not what happened, or the cop violated this, I'd take back in the day, it was an 8mm C-tape. And I'd go to the defense attorney and I'd go, here you go. See you not in court. And I'd always get a phone call and it'd always be like, you don't have to show up for court. And then they just plead. Never lost a case. Saved my bacon. So I love the fact that people were watching. I want people to know I'm doing the right thing. And I have no problem if somebody oversteps their grounds to have them charged. But judges have that immunity, and it's garbage. It's been garbage for as long as I've been serving. It's been garbage as long as I've been out, and I'll say it's garbage right now. It ticks me. There's one thing that ticks me off in America, in our system. It's our judicial system, and it's judges sitting at the top playing cowboy.
Well, there's a bigger part to that you have to then address, and that is there is a school-to-prison pipeline system, and it's designed to rot the education system, give them no opportunities, create these deserts And then they have two choices. You go be LeBron James, or you can go sell drugs. Those are your two choices. Oh, or you can be a cross-dressing social activist. You can do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Breeding grounds for mental illness. And we've talked about it.
Yeah, that was my claim, by the way.
Mental
Every
illness.
candidate that came on said crime or cost of living, and I said, no, it's mental illness.
Yeah. Whenever we've asked the question, what's the biggest problem in Colorado? It's crime, it's cost of living, but it's definitely mental illness.
And spiritual warfare, connected.
That's the guys that I think everybody's just more comfortable calling spiritual warfare. They're more comfortable calling it mental health.
I'm gonna tell you that all of that are symptoms to the problem, and the problem is that there's no representative government. We have no voice. The elections are 100% fraudulent. That's the only way you get to the degradation where it goes all in one direction for so long, right? So we have to look at it from the lens of these symptoms of mental health have to do with the fact that the people were never given a voice when it comes to vaccines. They were never given a voice when it comes to big pharma. Some of the other things like psychotropic drugs that are put into our children and they're prescribed like candy to kids. You can't have all of these things happening at the same time because parents have never been given the ability to reset. So if you take away the ability to have representative government, you basically see what is happening in our society right now.
Yeah, man. Well, but we're going to talk about the gubernatorial race. We're going to really dive deep into that. Before we do, let's come up for some air for just a second because we had a friend of yours, Scott Bottoms. He was on the show not too long ago, and he showed us. Well, he didn't show us, but he told us about what he likes to carry, and he made some bold claims. He said with his rose gold SIG P365 that he could outshoot all the gubernatorial candidates.
Including the sheriffs.
Including Sheriff Mikesell, including you. He said all the gubernatorial candidates.
That's not
so
even
you
a
need to
real
tell
claim.
us how right he is, okay? Tell us how right he is about that claim.
Well, I'm gonna put it out there that since I have 3 stores and 5 ranges, I will take that bet, and I will even. I've already donated to his campaign, which I know is weird for a governor candidate to donate to another one, but I have several of them. That's not even a real thing. Like that's not real. You're not. I mean, Scott, you cannot outshoot me. That's like my friend yesterday saying he can out ping pong me. So I was like, oh, I happen to have a ping pong table.
Let's go downstairs to play ping pong.
Let's go.
So, Scott, okay, let's just say this, okay? We tried to put together a gubernatorial shootout. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a great idea.
Teddy Collins said he would host it.
We need to do a gubernatorial shootout. And what are you bringing to outshoot Scott Bottoms his rose gold SIG P365?
Well, I mean, look, I have several carries. I've got a staccato. I've got a XL 365 macro. I'm wearing right now a 365 XL. I would outshoot him with a SAS, a 365 SAS.
Oh,
right, which by the way is a ingress.
Oh yeah,
site, and I'd still beat him with that. But if I was going to show up competitively, I would show up with my Nighthawk.
okay.
Yeah.
And I could shoot that thing.
I think Jared can relate to that.
I've had that. I've had my Nighthawk, which I purchased from you guys on the show several times.
Yeah.
I got my wife one, and then she got me one. You guys sent it back for us they did a whole bunch of custom nitrate and stuff on it. Got the mammoth grips on mine. I love it. It's a great gun. So I don't blame it. That would definitely be the gun of choice to outshoot.
The problem with that gun?
P365. What's the problem?
One problem with that gun, Jared. It's not in God's round.
That's true. It is in 9mm. That is what it's in.
So you wanted it in 45, huh?
No, I carry 9 everywhere I go. I'm just saying, if you're going to go with that gun, which he did, at least go to 45.
Yeah, but it's so smooth, and the ballistics on the 9mm are so great.
Oh
these days.
yeah. I'm just talking about claim. I'm not talking about how it shoots. I'm just talking about the coolness of what I got.
Yeah, no. So your wife has a Lady Hawk?
Yes, my wife. I bought her the Lady Hawk, and then she bought me a President, and it already had the nitrate gold barrel. But we brought it. She surprised me with it because I bought hers for her first, and she loved it. And we were just looking at a couple of them. I was like, "That's really cool. I really like that." I pointed at the President. So she went in and she worked with some of the guys over there, worked with Bubs, and they sent it over to Nighthawk. They nitrated all the other hardware to where it's kind of matching like a Lady Hawk, to where all the hardware is nitrate gold. And then you guys got the mammoth grips, and the mammoth grips turned out awesome.
They're cool.
Because there's a little bit of that kind of almost gold color in them, and it really contrasts well with the gun. So
But
it's awesome.
they're black and white, and it just reminds me of Ted Nugent when I look at the gun. All I can think of is Ted. I look at him like Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted, right there.
Yeah.
I met Ted Nugent, by the way, when I was like 17 years old. He used to own a motorcycle shop in the northern half of Michigan, an off-road place, and pulled in one day, and he had some like 70s Jeep CJ5 or something. And the Nuge was getting out. And I'm like, and we came in on our motorcycles. Like we were trail riding, just rode into the shop. I was like, oh, that's Ted Nugent. This was so cool. And then I met him several times. Good dude, by the way.
Super good dude. Super good.
Yeah.
All right, gubernatorial shootout. We got to get that on the schedule.
I want to get Teddy to host it though, because I want to go down to his shop and
we got to do outdoor.
Yeah, outdoor range.
We got to shoot some steel.
You see whatever you want, man. I'm all about it, and I love Teddy. So there you go.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. All right,
gubernatorial shootout. Let's
have a gubernatorial shootout in a different way.
Yeah, right now.
Let's segue it right now.
Who do you think is? Well, first of all, let's start with you. What's your path to getting on the ballot, and then who do you think are the top 3 picks to get on the ballot right now?
Well, I mean, look, you have Barb Kirkmeyer and Victor Marks that they want to circumvent the system, and they're gonna have themselves put on by petition. I believe that you have representatives that show up at the assembly. They should decide who goes on the ballot. So I'm going to show up to the assembly, and I'm going to pitch my case to the assembly and say this is what I think is best for the state of Colorado, and then I'll just take my chances there. Now, in 2022, they did a straw poll, and I had 78% of the vote when I stood up there, and I was nominated from the podium by Rich Wyatt, and so I've been fighting for 6 years. I don't think there's any problem with me getting 30% of the assembly vote in order to get on the ballot.
Okay.
But and I think Scott will be on the ballot too. Having 4 or 5 candidates is not ideal. I don't think this is just my opinion. I don't think Barb Kirkmeyer would make it to the ballot if she didn't petition on, and nor do I think that Victor Marks would.
Interesting. So you think you and Scott get there by way of assembly, and then potentially Victor and Barb by petition.
Well, yeah.
But you can only have 3 if you're doing 30%, right?
Yeah, but you have a petition. If you petition on and say Victor Marks gets 10%, he still petitioned on.
Oh,
so
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Got it.
So it's circumventing basically the process in order to make sure that you're on.
Do you like the process?
No.
I don't either.
I think you have to get rid of the independents, first of all. I mean, if you're a Republican, you say you're a Republican, you should be able to vote for who your candidate is. Not have it influenced by people that say they were Democrats, moved to independent, and then vote for basically the weakest candidate, which is what they've done in the past.
Is that what Lopez is doing?
That's a totally different animal.
All right, well, don't rabbit trail. It was just more of a quick question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that if I was reading the tea leaves, I think that Greg knows he can't win as an independent, right? Unless the candidate that is chosen for us, selected for us, is Victor Marks. And at that point, if it's Victor Marks, then he has a chance of winning. Yeah, because I've seen the brief. Von Kennedy is not. Look, you can have any opinion you want of Victor Marks. I went and met with him. I walked through this process. I don't even know if you want to get into this, but it could be.
That's what the show's for. We want people to we want to have a conversation. You've spent a lot of time on this, so tell us what you know. Tell us what you think.
First of all, I have the utmost respect for anyone that would run for public office, right? This is like pulling fingernails out one by one. It is painfully something I do not want to do. And if I felt there was a candidate that was talking about things the way that they need to be talked about, I wouldn't be here. I would be supporting one of them, doing everything I can to get them elected. So I went and met with candidates. Met with Scott Bottoms, met with Greg Lopez. I didn't meet with Kirkmeyer because I picked up the phone and called her, and she's like, yeah, I'm not going to meet with you. Okay. So as soon as she said that, she was out. Jason, I didn't even know was in the race. There's like 500 different candidates that decided they wanted to get into the governor's race. And Victor Marks. I went and sat with Victor Marks. I went to his house, sat with him, sat across from him, did the tour of his entire facility. And I was a very good negotiator in the Middle East and Africa. Like, there are people that say that they are good at things. I am really good at things. And it's a gift. I mean, and I was, had my daughter not gone to high school and gone from straight A's to C's and D's because she was afraid I was going to die, I would still be doing it. I loved it. I loved what I was doing. I saved lives. I did some amazing things. I got to, cut bread with kings, presidents, prime ministers, really powerful people, but also people that love the Lord. So I was able to talk to people about Jesus. Muslims, I do dua, do prayer with people and talk to them about Jesus. And I wasn't shy about it. But when I went to visit with Victor Marx, it was off. It was completely off.
You mean the feeling, the aura, the what?
He couldn't answer questions.
Oh, couldn't negotiate, you mean?
No, he couldn't answer questions. Couldn't answer questions. And then he took me through the tour and had me go look at pictures. And he's like, well, here's where I was here. And I was like, that's not where that is. That's not where the picture was taken, because I was there. And then we went, looked at the what is it called? The trailer that he was shot at through the thing. Everything was a story. Everything that he said was a story. So when we came back after we walked through the entire thing, we sat down on the couch. I just started asking questions. What are you going to do to win Colorado? And I said, listen, if you're going to win, these are the things you have to do. You're going to have to doge the government. Went from $12 billion to $44 billion. So, and that just happened over 8 years. You're going to have to get it back to a sensible place. You're going to have to get rid of property tax. You're going to have to get rid of tollways. You're going to have to do things that give people back the ability to be able to survive in this state. And he just stared at me. That's why I said 35 minutes is probably the max, because I think I sat with him for 45 minutes, and then I just saw this blank stare. And then Trent, who's his handler, said, okay, it's time for you to go. I was like, okay, no problem. Shook his hand. I left, right? That's not where I was off. That's not even, that wasn't even the part that led me to believe that Victor Marx couldn't do the job. It just didn't feel right. Then I got into the race. I got in the race because I didn't feel like he actually had enough horsepower or experience that he could get anything done. And I didn't feel like the other candidates were talking about the things that were necessary. So they had experience, but they necessarily didn't see what the people need, what the Democrats need versus the Republicans. And you cannot win without actually having a cross-the-aisle strategy to win at least independence, right? And if you're not talking about the things that are most important to those people, you're never going to win. So I got in the race and said, okay, I'm going to get going. Here are the things that I want to do. I did an 1.5-hour show on here are the things that I think we need to do. And a week later, I started getting phone calls. First, everyone was excited. I got calls from the GOPs, and they're like, hey, listen, Joe, can you come out? We're having a debate. We want you to be here. We want you to go to Longmont. We want you to. So, and I got a call for Longmont. They said, hey, we want you to come up here. We have Victor Marx coming. Can you come? An hour later, I get a phone call saying, we're pulling our invite to you. And I was like, why? Well, Victor says that he's not, that he wants to be there. He wants to do his own thing. He must be the only one there. I said, okay. So then I got a phone call from several other places that said, Victor Marx called us and said that, if you're there, he's not coming. Well, I never had a crossword with the guy. There was never a crossword with the guy ever. Like I put on my Facebook page that if he ran, I would stand next to him, which is why I went to go visit with him, because he seemed like the strongest candidate. Strong meaning he had the ability to stand up. I didn't care about the being able to snatch a gun out of his hand, although I would ask you this. Mm-hmm. You think he's snatching a gun out of your hand?
I had him do it to me down there on that floor.
Okay.
At an event. So, I mean, I do gun takeaways all the time.
Uh-huh.
I do it a little bit different.
You going to have somebody get that close to you?
Well, again, I've got experience of closing the gap and taking guns from people in law enforcement realm on suicidal things and stuff like that. So I have some degree of experience in it, but I don't mean like triple digits. I mean like low double digits where I've had to do that kind of stuff. Is there authenticity in it? You better believe there is. Is there the ability to do it in real time versus demonstrating it? Those are two totally different things.
Way different things.
Two totally different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I've done it, and yes, I had him take it away, but it was a stage deal where I put it out there and I let see how quick he is. That's what I was watching.
Yeah. Well,
let's see how fast you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that's what it was about. It was about putting on a show.
Yeah. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Putting on a show.
All right. Well, let me maybe infuse the conversation with a little more. Let's talk a little bit about everything you just now said. I've known Victor since I was a teenager. At least known about him. I didn't meet him until last year in person for the first time. But I've watched his videos using martial arts as like a demonstration to be able to kind of speak effectively to different groups of people and young people, and be able to use it as kind of a way to minister to people. His most viral, at least as far as I'm aware of, his most viral video, maybe, I don't know, maybe the Sean Ryan videos are now more viral, but the used to be the most viral videos on YouTube is the double disarm that he does with the one in front and the one behind. He takes them away and turns them around. If you watch the entire video of that, he's actually really using these demonstrations to lead these young people to faith and resilience. And that's what he's using martial arts to demonstrate. So that was something that made me think favorably of him whenever I was young, because I was kind of just getting into martial arts, being a pastor's kid, you know, figuring out how to navigate the world with my faith and get into martial arts and jiu-jitsu. Whenever I first got into a pretty rough scene, still is majority. A lot of it is a rough scene. So I was inspired by that ability to use martial arts as a way to minister, to speak to people. I say that for context for where I've come from, as I've just followed the entire race, and we've had a lot of good conversations with several candidates. But as you've described your story, do you think that maybe, I don't know, I've been in situations before where I've met somebody and I know the feeling and the atmosphere you're describing where it was just like off, and maybe there was just this thing that didn't click. That's happened with me, and I'm sure that there's other people. You've had that instance where you just met somebody, it didn't go normally. It didn't go. Maybe there was some kind of a rift. I don't know, something that gets between being able to really connect. And then from what I understand, you had this meeting with him before you announced your candidacy for governor, right? Did you connect and tell him you were going to run, anything like that? Or do you think that it's possible that maybe whenever he had this conversation with you and then you announced your run, he felt like maybe you were trying to get the inside scoop and maybe trying to be a little bit almost like espionage, trying to figure out his inside scoop before you announced your candidacy? Do you think that it's possible that he kind of has that or feels that way at all? I don't know. I'm just from outside looking in.
All right,
That's what I would immediately think.
Let's address a couple things. You own businesses.
Yes, sir.
Let's say you were partners with someone that was cheating on their wife, and you knew they were cheating on their wife. What's the rule? If you'll cheat on your wife, you'll cheat on your friends. Right? If you lie to your wife, you'll lie to your friends. Is that a real thing?
Sure it is.
Okay.
It's crazy that he would say that to me.
Yeah, I started to say there's some irony in your statement, but go ahead.
Oh, was there?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, man.
So let me explain something to you. I accept everyone where they are, not where I want them to be. I have no predisposed thing that I go out and I was like, okay, I'm going to run for governor. Like, this is like I don't scheme. I don't have to. I don't need anybody's money. I don't need power. There's nothing that I need that God hasn't provided for me. I've gone through 5 years of a lawsuit. I spent $10 million over that. I gave up selling my company for $253 million. I'm a 2-time Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year nominee. I was a finalist in 2020. I got involved in this fight, and it basically destroyed my life. They came after my wife and children, and Hannah and I got on a podcast and said, if you come for my kids or you come for my wife, I will kill your entire family. I said that, right? Now, if you're a good person, you have to make a decision that you're willing to do those things before you say it, right? So I've worked with gang members. I built a football league that now reaches 12,000 kids across the country. I've never bragged about that. I've sat on boards across the entire state of Colorado. I worked with felons that get out of jail after 10 years of a 20-year sentence. I've mentored those guys into positions where they're actually productive parts of society. Like, I've done a lot of stuff. I've served for the last 18 years, and I have done so unapologetically. In other words, I didn't get involved in any of this because, somewhere along the line I needed to have any sort of recognition, because I would have taken it then, and I didn't. When I decided I was going to run for governor, it's because nothing seemed right. You guys have always had that. Every man has had that experience where nothing seems right, right? We're in trouble. It's the whole idea of we're in trouble. And it wasn't until Victor started lying about me, saying that I attacked his wife and children. I just spent 5 years of them attacking my wife and children. I would never attack anybody's wife or children. And then somebody that volunteers on my campaign starts digging up dirt on him. I hadn't even looked at it. If you were to look at my schedule or talk to my assistant, she would tell you that I eat my lunch on the go. I travel 900 flights over 5 years. I have large clients. I have smaller clients. I have people that I take care of, and I've got a lot of businesses, right? And I've got to mentor over 200 people in that process that are my employees across those different entities. So I didn't get, it's not anti-Victor. I'm not anti-Victor. I'm anti someone that can't tell the truth. Don't lie. And it wasn't until then that I decided if you're going to lie about these things, so fundamental to who a person is, and you call it embellishment, call it whatever you want, right? I saved 43,000 kids. That would put him in the top one position, the number one position of women and children in trafficking that are being saved. I built a program, handed it to a company in California, right, that basically could go through the dark web and find both perpetrators and victims. That's still being used today. Again, I did it for fun. I built it because I have tech stuff, and I was like, hey, I wonder if we could build this that stops these pedophiles from being in the marketplace. I didn't look into Victor until Victor started doing things that I thought were counterproductive to someone being a good person. That's it, right? And then as I got more and more into it, it became more and more interesting. And I talked to guys at, Gray Bull Rescue. I don't know if you know Brian over at Gray Bull Rescue. Do you know Brian?
I do not.
He's a CIA operator, right? Special forces guy that literally has done over 900 missions. And he's been all over the world. And, he called me. I didn't call him. And he said, I need to have a conversation with you about Victor, right? So there's a lot of people that happen to do that through this process. And I still wasn't anti-Victor until Victor just kept talking. He kept sending his goons out. He kept sending people to me. I'm not a scared guy. You're not going to look, if I'm with Jesus, I'm with Jesus. It's fine. I'm good, right? But while I'm here, I'm going to fight like hell to get through everything that I need to get through, right? So no, I don't have any predisposed deal with Victor or Vaughn Kennedy. But the more I got into his DD-214s and all the things that he said he did, and then I looked through his financials on the nonprofit side, and 11% went to do what needed to be done, and 89% went to his own pocket. I was out. Because if I was giving money to something and only 11% went to it, right, you've lost me at hello. You're never going to see another one of my dollars. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he can do the job. And that's even a separate issue. And if you can't go to debates and you can't talk to the public and you tell them you're so popular, I went through I'm a data guy. I went through all of his donations that were actually, how many of those do you think came from Colorado? I mean, it was $689,000. How much of it came from Colorado?
It's over $1 million now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, just the ones that I was able to through the first filing. How many of those donations came from Colorado?
I don't know.
Less than 7%.
Wow.
So, and yeah, you can use your list to raise money for your campaign that you have for, stopping the trafficking of women and children. What is the most popular thing out there to say that you're doing right now?
Yeah, that.
Right?
Yeah.
So, look, I'm all about being real. I want to be about it. I don't want to just talk about it. I want to talk about doing things and not be able to do those things, right? I was in the Middle East for 6.5 years. I've got people in my phone that you can look through that are legitimate people that I dealt with when I was overseas. I got pictures. I got videos. And I got pictures and videos of me doing actual things to save lives and to create environments that were safer for the people in those environments, right? I can't find any of those stories. I can find nothing that he can take a gun away from you. First of all, I have two hands on my gun if I'm in a combat situation, not one. Right? There's just a ton of things that are just totally wrong with that circus act that I.
Well, that's you asked earlier. It's not whether I endorsed or didn't endorse, or I love hanging out in the moment, and the show was fine. In my real world, I can tell you, Joe, that I'm going to say 7 to 8 off the top of my head are popping in right now of where I've had to gun strip somebody, gangbanger style, holding a gun to my forehead. Totally different deal. Get it? I don't want to get focused on that. Followed the guy for a while, looked at some of the things he did. To Jared's point, I think there was some martial arts ministry that happened that really impacted some young men. Yeah. I mean, I've heard the stories. I kind of look at it through the lens of Joe Oltmann. I'm going to use him as an example. So you got a guy that you got the electric blue carpeting, and you got the squinty eyes, and you got all the stuff that has been said. But who am I to question how many people he's won over to Jesus Christ? Who am I? Excuse me. I'll never know that number.
Right.
I'm guessing until the day I die and I meet my Lord and Savior, and he looks at me and goes, yeah, Joel, you asked this question on earth. Yeah, it was 39,512, whatever the number is. 18,000 people fill that stadium church every week. And to me, he feels like a false prophet. To me, it feels that way. Like when everything feels off about it. But I don't know who's being fed. So when I look at it through the lens of, can God work through anybody? And I've heard some of the stories from the young men that have been in the Victor Marks circle. I think there's 100% legitimacy of their faith journey, their walk, and how they transform from martial arts to this thing. To your point, that doesn't run a state. It doesn't run a governorship. And I get that. Like, I'm acknowledging that, and I think two truths can exist at the exact same time.
Two things can be true at the same time.
So I just look at it and go, I think there's good works that people have done. And I would say that about Barb Kirkmeyer. I'd say that about Scott Bottoms. I would say that about, fill in the blank.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't want to take away the accomplishments that people have, right? I just want to look at it from the standpoint that we don't have another election to be wrong.
Right.
Right. And Colorado's in a very precarious situation because of how bad it is. We're the most expensive state in the entire country to live right now, and it shouldn't be that way because we don't have the same entitlements we're a landlocked state. We shouldn't have it. We shouldn't be more expensive than California, yet we are, right? And so there's things that we don't need and that we do need. I don't believe he understands those things. He hasn't been able to balance his own budget. I could take all the personal stuff that I have at this point out of the equation. I spent 55 minutes on the phone with Trent. I trusted him so little that I recorded the call, which I'd never do. Right? And then I went back and listened to it 3 times, and I'm like, holy crap. Believe it when people tell you who they are. Now, look, Jimmy Swaggart brought a lot of people to Christ.
Sure.
Right?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but why would you be talking to Trent rather than Victor himself? Was that?
You tell me. Because I said, hey, have Victor call me. I'll have the conversation with him. And if there's something I need to do to influence someone to basically back off, which I did do, right? I did. I went to Darcy, and I said, Darcy, let's just take a deep breath. She's like, nope. I'm like, okay. I also believe that people are their own people, right? And I was like, it's not me. It's you. You can do what you want. Just don't bring it into the campaign. Don't bring it into the office. I don't want to see this stuff, right? So I don't want to see negativity, period, anyway, and I don't want to chase that negativity. But when you put it in front of me and when questions start to arise, I will look into those questions, right? I'm an advocate for how do we get to a place where we work the problem? If he gets into office, can he do the work? Right? And, by the way, can he win black and brown votes? And I've been in those environments. The answer is no. He can't. Why didn't Victor call me? Victor knows he has my number. He could have picked up the phone and called me.
If we're able to get him to agree to come on the show with you, would you do it?
Absolutely.
Sit across from him?
Absolutely. And he can ask me any
it might be a
question.
long shot, but we may be able to get him on. We have talked to his campaign about him having sit downs with other candidates, and they didn't say no, so it might be a possibility. But the first thing that I really start to think about, as long as I've been following him, and I've listened to the Sean Ryan podcast, all 3 episodes, and then read his book, like, I feel relatively acquainted with the guy. And I've also followed his social media, and you look back years and you see pictures of him, with his team, with kids. And so you're saying that he showed you some pictures and said this was there, and maybe some of those things weren't adding up. I guess really the real question is how much, 45,000, I think it was Jason Mikesell, who was very diplomatic in his approach to talking about this. He was like, he said, I think that where a lot of people can kind of cross that line that is kind of gray is instead of saying served, they say saved. So maybe served, and I don't know, maybe they're including in that 45,000 people who got stuffed animals. I couldn't tell if you were laughing or choking for your life.
I was doing
over
both.
there.
I was doing both at the same time.
Giving stuffed animals is not saving a life.
Right.
I've seen the photos over the years of them being overseas, and they're with kids doing whatever work that they're doing in other countries. So I guess the question would be, how much is true? How much is false? What is the legitimacy? What is the illegitimacy? Because do you think that just flat out, whenever you come on the show, whenever you say he started lying and this is not adding up, how much of this do you think that is true?
Okay, so let's open that up a little bit. Let's unpack that. Does he have a level 3 brain injury? TBI.
How would we find something like that out?
It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a level 3. Doesn't exist. You can call anyone you want. You can call it the psychiatric hospital, you call anyone you want. It doesn't exist. That system doesn't exist. Is he bipolar? His words, not mine. He said it. I've watched the interviews. Is he bipolar? So which part is true? Which part isn't true? How do you backtrack on things that you say about yourself and then say it didn't happen? Did he kill at 7 years old? Did he shoot someone in the backyard? Is his dad actually a drug runner and work for the bad guys? I mean, is all this stuff true or is it not true? See, I don't want to pick and choose what's true and not true. I have to be able to validate some of it. Can you lead someone to Christ and still be absolutely full of crap?
Of course you can.
So, I mean, and actually, whatever he decides to do or say doesn't even matter. I listened to the Sean Ryan podcast, right? I listened to all the ones all the way back to when he did the ones in Hawaii where he was, talking about it. I've looked at all of it over the last 15 years. And because now I'm fascinated. I picked up the phone and called, a father he's a Catholic priest. And I was like, tell me what happened in Lebanon. He told this whole story about what happened in Lebanon. I've spent an enormous amount of time in Beirut. Okay. I know Beirut very well. All the way back to 2008. So I asked him, and maybe he'd be a good guy to have on the show. And he says, not a good guy. And I was like, all right, you need to tell me more than that. And I would tell you his name.
Who's this guy?
I will tell you. I will literally, off the record, let you have a conversation with him so that you can have a conversation with him. He's here in Colorado.
Okay.
Okay. But I asked him the same question. Again, at the same time, can you embellish things and create these stories in your own mind in order to get a outcome of helping kids have a better life? The short answer is yes, you can. And I don't even care that he did or doesn't do any of that. I do care that he saved children. I do care that he brought kids to Christ. I do care about that, right? That's not what we're talking about, though. We're talking about whether or not can two things be true at the same time. Can he have be bipolar? His wife talk about actually kicking in holes in the wall. He does it once a year and all this crazy stuff that is, he said. I didn't say it. I've never kicked holes in my walls, right? I've been married 24 years. I talk about selling drugs at 16. I talk about some of the things that I've done because I did it, and I don't want skeletons in the closet. I talk about blowing up a company, mismanaged people in capital, finding Jesus, being a horrible person when I was first married to my first wife, not understanding what it meant to be a husband. So I talk about those things because they impact me. They impact me the fact that I was that type of person, and that I needed to make a different change in order to be the person I think God wanted me to be, right? And I was never a Boy Scout in my life. And I can talk about those things intelligently. He can't. And what I need for this state, what you both need, what we all need in this state is someone that can walk in with sensibility that can't be influenced by someone that comes in and says, well, this interest over here wants this, and someone that's fair weather. You got to be able to stand up strong and protect the people, and I don't think he knows how to do that.
So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about another candidate. And we don't want to just spend all the time talking about candidates. We want to talk about you. We want to talk about your race, and we want to talk about your path to victory. And but just for a second, let's shift gears because we had Scott Bottoms on not too long ago, and we were talking about the Kyle Clark hit piece. And Kyle Clark continues to go after Scott. And I'm sure you saw the video of his claims of pedophile rings in the state capitol and in the Senate and in the governor's office. How do you think, and what do you think about his management of those claims? What is your thoughts about how Scott's handling that?
Well, let's talk about what's happening in the Capitol for a minute. What kind of rules and what kind of laws are they passing? Right. By the way, I love Scott Bottoms. I think he's an exceptional man, bar none. Right. I actually like Jason too. By the way, Mikesel, he's a nice guy. I was just with him a couple days ago. I like Barb Kirkmeyer. I actually like Victor. Like I don't dislike him. I just don't like him. I don't like these. I can't identify with that. It bothers me, right? For the same reason that betrayal bothers anyone, I don't want to be betrayed in my choice, right? When Scott came out, he shined a light on a few things that are really important. Number one, we know that this is one of the highest trafficked environments in the country. It is Georgia and it is Colorado. Those are the hubs of child and trafficking. Right? Would you agree? Would you agree with
I
that?
do agree with it.
Okay.
Yep.
So if that's the case, and he is in the legislature and he works in a church, and this has been something that he's been working on for a long time. It's not just something that Scott popped out on, right? And he has never popped off on this except for in talking about the fact that it's wrong inside of his church. You've never seen Scott talk about this, but in the legislature, they're passing new rules. The Democrats are standing in the way of harsh sentences for pedophiles, right? You have the governor of the country of the state, excuse me, not the country, but the governor of the state, who's done some really weird things, right? He's done some really weird things.
He's a snazzy dresser, though. Sorry.
You like his shoes? You like his shoes?
Dude, don't get me going.
So you have all these things that are happening, right? And then Scott decides he's going to drop the bomb. Scott's not a stupid man. He knew what the outcome was going to be. But based on the fact that they're trying to legalize prostitution, give probation to pedophiles, loosen what we've already seen loosen with the judiciary in the state, punishment for crimes that were committed against women and children, because that's what's happened in the state, is what he said so far-fetched? And by the way, he doubled down on it. He said, look, and I know Barb's like, I think he's lying. I don't think Scott's the type of guy that would sit up there and lie. I just don't think that's possible. I don't think that's a real thing. I don't think Scott is predisposed to talk about things like that in a non-serious way. And Kyle Clark was able to kind of shoehorn things together inside the interview. Well, that was an interview that went all the way across the street. He didn't release it. I think Kyle Clark should release all of the video of the conversation that happened all the way along the way. He shouldn't be able to just cut and splice it and create these things. Kyle Clark has attacked me. He said that I called for violence against people that I disagreed with. That's not what I said. I was like, if you commit treason, you should be hung by the neck until dead. I'm sorry, but that's the punishment for treason. If you don't like it, change the law. So, and I said this when, 45 minutes ago, how do we get to a place where the consequence is so great that people stop raping women and children? Right?
Seems pretty common sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Man.
So I have a question, because I think everything you just said for the last, 2.5, 3 minutes, I'm word for word hanging on everything you're saying. Like, yep. Let me be crystal clear on that. Looking you dead in the eye. Yep. What Scott said, here's the thing that bothers me. It's not whether it's true or not. It's that he's holding it hostage. That bothered me. I didn't like the way he said it. If you take me to this point, then I'm going to do something over here. So I can tell you, this thing's been killing me all day. As a 6-year-old boy who was raped in the church and outside of the church for 2 straight years in small town Kentucky, had it covered up. My grandparents knew, my parents knew, but because it was a powerful person in town and they didn't want to see this person burn, the cover-up happens. So my life starts there. Then I got 2 families, 2 sides of my families. One's a pastor. My mom's dad is a pastor. My dad's dad is the elder of the Baptist church. These churches face each other, by the way. If Google Earth had existed 25 years ago, they'd still be looking at each other. One of them's been torn down. My mom's dad was forced to leave the church because she was 16 years old. They bumped uglies in the backseat of a 64 Impala on Main Street, Monticello, Kentucky. I'm the byproduct of that. 2 years of sodomy. I move. Parents divorce. We go to Michigan, Detroit area. I sit on the other side of that statement that he makes, and I levitate pissed off. Like on a level I can't even begin to tell you, because had I known that had been said when he was sitting in here, I'd have looked him dead in the eye and said, you need to explain that to me. As a victim, I need to understand that, because I can understand the claim. I can understand all of the laws, that stuff ticks me off too. All these things that we're passing. But as a victim, and I think Epstein, I think all of this stuff, you got victims out there that carried this trauma with them. Michelle Chandler sat in that chair right there and talked about the trauma, the real-time trauma of what it's like to be abused and what it does to your brain, your marriage, your relationships, all of this stuff. Man, it has been an uphill battle my whole life. So when I hear somebody say, that's no different to me than somebody claiming they went over and saved X amount of people in another country and there's no proof in it. Except
Yeah.
for here we got proof and now we're going to hold it hostage. That ticked me off.
So I want to say this first. I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank you. But I've learned how to deal with it.
Well, I mean, you've learned how to live with it.
I've learned how to live with it.
Yeah. We never deal with it. Dealing with it's a little different because dealing with it means that you have to let it go. You can't let it go. It stays with you forever. I think, and I actually had this conversation with Scott, and I'm like, Scott, you misspoke. And he goes, okay, I said, what I think you were trying to say, and I probably should have let him explain it first. I said, what I think you're trying to say is that if they don't come forward with it, when you are governor, you will make sure that it goes forward. Because there are a lot of things that happen to people. I mean, you could talk about Virginia Gumphrey, who I interviewed. She committed suicide because she had no hope. You know, she was the poster child that fought for these victims. She wrote a memoir, and then the memoir was dismissed, right? They wouldn't even publish it. They wouldn't even self-publish it. That's how much they tried to hide the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And I believe that Scott was having conversations with the FBI outside of Colorado. I know that to be a fact because I can tell you who's running the FBI in Colorado, and it's not good people. These are the same people that victimized J6ers and did horrible things to Americans and said there's nothing to see here. I believe the AUSA, Kevin Traskos, who's married to Melissa Hart, who was a Supreme Court justice that resigned, he just resigned, covered up crimes for Polis and Weiser. I believe that there is a crime syndicate that exists inside of our judiciary. So all those things being true, you know, we have one judge in Colorado that committed suicide as he was downloading pictures and videos of children being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's one that got caught. But the $2.6 million bribery case for Macias, the Macias memo, you're familiar with this?
I'm very familiar.
Okay. She was going to blow the whistle on sexual misconduct inside of the judiciary.
Yeah.
Right? And they paid her hush money.
Hmm.
So
She's a coward.
she is. She won't come forward. I've tried. I'm
I'm sorry. If you get paid off, you're part of the problem.
I 1,000% agree with you. But I think that one of the things that's happened is that Kyle Clark is not faring well by talking about Scott Bottoms because people are now digging into what's happening in the legislature and they weren't paying attention before. So anything that's meant for bad can also be used for good.
Sure.
And I think that if I get in the governor's office, I can tell you right now what I'm going to do. Day one executive order for me is going to be strip the judicial help me, the immunity, judicial.
Oh,
immunity.
it should be gone
Day one,
yesterday.
right? I don't think that Scott spoke maliciously. I don't think it was self-serving. I think what he was trying to say is if they don't get it done, because he did say in the interview, and hopefully it comes out before, if it comes out before, we're trying to see if it can come out before. But if it doesn't, when I'm in office, it will come out, right? There's a certain amount of this that I think he has to honor the FBI. You were in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe loose lips sink ships. I probably wouldn't have brought it up that way. I would have said that there's probably investigations going on. I would have given, I certainly have access to information out of Washington. They tell me certain things. Joe, can you poke the bear? And I do, right? And I never divulge my sources, right? And I try to stay as foggy as possible so that people can understand what's being said so that a day or two later they can see that information come out. So I don't think that Scott was saying that I'm going to hold it until then. And I think that Kyle Clark is a part of the problem. I think Kyle knows that Scott can't betray any conversations he's having with the FBI and or other sources.
Well, this is a perfect segue into this last thing that I saved. This is actually a post from Victor on this entire situation. So this will kind of have some overlap between discussing Scott and Victor. Victor just posted this yesterday, and I wanted to just read some of the highlights because I don't know how the FBI works, but this statement really is just discussing how the FBI works pertaining to Scott Bottoms' claim. Because Scott in the video, whenever Kyle Clark corners him and does that forced interview at the Capitol, Scott makes the claim, whether it's there or whether it's at the rally, somewhere in that video, Scott points to his distrust in CBI and his distrust in the FBI in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how the FBI works, but according to this, it says that the FBI pretty much, if you talk to one of them, you talk to all of them. It says here, I'll read this paragraph toward the bottom of this.
Yeah, that's not true.
These matters require coordination and adherence to evidentiary standards, not public conjecture. Additionally, statements suggesting that working with an out-of-state FBI office somehow circumvents local federal oversight demonstrates a lack of understanding of how the FBI operates. The FBI is a single national agency. All field offices function under centralized leadership, policy, and oversight, particularly in crimes against children and public corruption matters. What is your understanding?
That's not the way the FBI works.
Yeah, that's not. I have to agree with that too. That's not accurate.
That is horse crap. That's not even real. It's not real.
No, it's not, because actually the FBI has state arrest powers in some places and no
Yes.
arrest powers in others. So, which just right out of the gate totally differentiates it.
The FBI also has liaisons that they train up that sit in each police department, both sheriff's offices and in. This is what I talk about when he runs his mouth about stuff he has no idea about, and I do. And I was never in law enforcement, right? But I did build a program. I did take it to CBI. I took it to GBI, and they said this would create an undue advantage. I know the old agent in charge for that 15 years ago was at CBI. He was a friend of mine. And so I know that how things have changed in CBI. I can tell you right now, you don't get to a rotted apparatus of the judiciary without a rotted apparatus inside of law enforcement, okay? And you can't have a guy like Christopher Wray that has his tentacles in for as long as he did, or James Comey, without creating environments where you have certain offices that don't trust other offices. And when I said the things about treason, being tried for treason and then hung, right? That went to the San Francisco field office. It did not go to the Colorado field office.
Okay.
Why?
Because you didn't trust Colorado's
No,
office.
they did.
No,
They didn't.
No,
Okay.
they did it. They did. They wanted an outside source to look into it. And the only reason I know that, I'm friends with the Suspendables. So I'm going to send that to Kyle Seraphin, by the way, which by the way, you should have him on the show. You know who Kyle is?
No, I don't. I've heard the name.
He's one of the FBI whistleblowers that gave up his career with Steve Friend and
Oh, yeah.
all those guys. He's exceptional, right? Again, I say that Victor Marx makes statements like this, and it's fundamentally not true.
It looked like that the entire thing was generated by ChatGPT. It looked like it was just an AI generation. It probably was not even somebody actually manually sitting there and putting something in there. It was just a statement most likely generated by AI, at least according to some of the indicators that looked like they were in their statement. But I guess the question would then be, I mean, as far as just finishing this discussion with Scott Bottom's claims, has he clued you in? Do you have any idea who he's working with, what evidence exists? He didn't really give us much, and he's not giving anybody much to go off of. So I get it. If there's a legitimate person at the FBI outside of the state that he trusts, he's working with them. He's going through the channels of what he thinks is best, I guess, in handling this. And in all honesty, maybe it's not even something that he discovered and presented. Maybe it's something that was presented to him and he was just questioned about it. I don't know all the situations. But according to other people, he has a mandatory reporting obligation being a part of the House. And so that's where some of the frustration, I think, has lied with other people as well. If he knows this information, he should be filing it and bringing it to the attention of people at the Capitol.
So can I ask you a question on this?
Please, yeah.
In relation to that, I'd like you to answer this.
Okay.
In law enforcement, do you want the bad guy to know you're coming?
No.
And so I think that he erred in the idea of putting out conversations he was having in reporting, because he does have a duty to report. So does the judiciary for misconduct, right? And when Melissa Hart, who's on the Colorado Supreme Court, got a DUI and ran into a parked car and committed crimes and was put on probation, everyone in the judiciary in the entire city and county of Denver knew that she got put on probation, including the judge that was overseeing her probation. Did any of them report it? Any of the 235 magistrates or judges, did one of them report it to the Colorado Supreme Court? for misconduct.
Was it? And this is maybe it's a dumb question. Was it because it was already out that they didn't report it?
Nobody reported it, not even the media. Kyle
No, but
Clark
I'm
said
saying
none
the,
of
I'm
that.
saying the charge and the arrest though. Was it because it was public knowledge?
It was never public knowledge.
So it was never public knowledge.
In the report, they didn't even say she was drunk. I had to talk to the witness that said she was drunker than a skunk when she smashed in and did $100,000 in damage.
Yeah. So that in that case, then no, they should have.
So who do you trust?
Exactly.
And in law enforcement, you had the same problem. You
Oh,
put
of
a
course.
dash cam on your car
Absolutely, I did.
because you trusted zero.
I trusted my integrity. And, man, I hate that I have this tickle. I don't like being questioned by anybody,
Right.
but I love being questioned by everybody. Does that make sense?
100%.
So I don't like being challenged on something that I unequivocally know I'm right on. But I said it. I've been saying this for a long time, Joe. We've not met, but this is my Micah-ism. I call it. I'm a 98-1-1 guy. So 98% of the time I think I'm right. 1% of the time I leave for I'm wrong, and 1% of the time I leave for crap happens. Didn't see it coming. Caught me by surprise. Call it what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't mean I walk around arrogantly like 98% of the time I'm right. I mean is if I think I'm right, I don't think I'm 100% right. I believe 98% of the time I'm right because there's a trip hazard somewhere. Something can happen. So, yeah, I did dash cam it for a reason because I knew what I was doing. I had a good FTO that set me up the right way, and I never lost a case because I had integrity. And every time I put cuffs on somebody, I made sure that film went somewhere.
Right.
And by the way, I was in hundreds of chases. I just happened to be in a very violent area. Those are the go-get-em area. It wasn't Douglas County. I moved out here and it was like watching soccer moms drive up and down the roadway. So it was a different deal. But my story, in short, is what happened to me as a little boy wasn't. I mean, it was awful on every level, and there's a lot of stuff. But this wasn't like daddy issue stuff. I mean, this was stuff that was just I carried it with me. I didn't even told my wife until 10 years into marriage. I mean, I broke down up on a Jeep and trail with Blackhawks. Said, we got to talk. But I was already well into my law enforcement career, and I went after the guys that did that. So if you rape a woman, you rape a child, you're target number one. Even over homicide, I went after those guys first. It only bothered me from the standpoint if he said because he said it, if I get in, then I will. And I'm paraphrasing that, but that was what was asserted. And I went, wait, what? If you know about something right now that's going on, I'll be the first guy to stand with you, bat your shoulder. I will go to bat with you. Let's go get him.
Yeah, I would encourage you to have a conversation with him about this.
Oh, I will. Yeah.
And hold him accountable to it. And I think you'll find that I didn't ask the question because I become pretty enraged on the women and children part.
Good.
Right? I won't say why, but
That's okay. I can see it in your face. I can see it in your eyes. And you've already sat down and said, here was my lesson learned on marriage 1, right? So we've all, shoot, man, if my wife was sitting here right now, Joe, she'd walk over, give you a big old hug. She'd look at you and say, thank you for tearing up a little bit on camera because the journey that she and I have been on, shoot, Jerry and I said it. We talked about it last night. There's nothing but integrity sitting here on this platform right now, this mezzanine. Man, the struggles we were going through just a month ago, we're 31 years into marriage. You never stop realizing what a horse's ass you can be sometimes. Oh. And I go, man, I thought I had it dialed in. So I don't say anything I don't do, and I'll own everything I've ever done. Yeah. And there's some dark stuff in there, and there's some bad horse stuff in there. But at the end of the day, I can with conviction, Jesus Christ looking down on me right now, I can tell you there is never a time where I've ever compromised a woman or a child when it comes to harm. That you are going to get my all in, my full in, my everything. There's some dudes I've walked journeys with that have made bad decisions, and I'm like, all right, we need to go down on the mat and beat the crap out of each other. When it comes to protecting a woman who, especially vulnerable women, I'm not talking just straight up women, because I mean, there's some women out there that can handle themselves. Michelle Chandler sat here and some dude was perving on her, and she went and beat the crap out of him and got him arrested. But for the ones that can't, especially the children, I'm all in. So
I'd go to prison for a long time.
Oh, dude, they would. Yeah, I would go to a Kansas wheat field for about 3 days first before I went to prison. because I'm going to get the answers. I'm
So
going to find out who's involved.
We're running pretty close to time on the camera's battery life at the moment. So that's going to be one of our biggest limitations here. But out of everything, I mean, you've had incredible information and insight to be able to share. So thank you for that. But more important than anything, we've really talked about faith, and I've really appreciated that, because not every candidate has. It's not been a conversation that's really had faith interwoven as much as conversation with you. And I would just like to give you the opportunity, if you're willing, to just kind of share what brought you to faith, what brought you to Jesus, because you kind of mentioned it earlier. If you could maybe just give a summarized version of just your testimony, I think that would be awesome.
Well, I think God found me. I didn't really find him. Right? It was I had gotten defrauded by a hedge fund out of $10.5 million. I was living in a $2 million house. I had companies that were great. Got in a big fight with pretty much. I've never seen a fight I didn't like. And it was 2007, and I had lost $17 million in 18 months. Tried these new businesses and got into tech for the first time. And I went from at 30 years old being worth $20 million to at 32 being worth $3 million, barely.
And a lot of people would like to be worth $3 million, wouldn't they?
Yeah, on paper. But I was driving around in a $150,000 car, couldn't pay my cell phone bill. Like really, just every door closed at the same time. It was the most annoying. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me how to be a man. Like I was a man before that. I coached my kids in soccer. I was my son in soccer. I never missed an event. I was an amazing father, but I did not talk about Jesus with them. Right? My son's 7, my daughter's almost 10, and my daughter came to me with the Bible, and she wrote out the genealogy from in Genesis, right, in this long piece of paper, and I had something happen to me that frankly. Doesn't happen, and I'll talk to you guys about it off camera, because I think it's probably an off camera conversation. Just I don't share it with many people, but it was the moment that I realized that I was not defined by money and I wasn't defined by success. That there was a higher purpose that I had to be able to adhere to, and I've lived an amazing life. Like my life, any chapter of my book is ridiculous. Like if I were to die tomorrow, I have had a I've seen things that I've seen the good and the bad. I've seen things that nobody would be able to see, right? Just incredible things, incredible relationships. It's been awesome in places that I have no business being, frankly. And I know that I've never had a burning bush moment, but I had this moment that I knew that my purpose, that's why I went to the Middle East and Africa. I spent 6.5 years there. I went there by accident. Like everything in my life's been by accident. And they were talking about something at a very high level in a foreign country. And I was like, I know how to fix that. I went to a state school. I'm not that bright. You know, my books were lighter. They had less information, but here's how I would do it. I actually said that. Then I walked over to this man and I used my left hand, and I'm in a Muslim country, and I tapped this leader on his shoulder, like tap, like, hey, good job. And the whole place gasped. And I didn't know, because I was like Forrest Gump. And I just decided that day, a couple other things happened, that I needed to serve the Lord. I needed to step away from business completely, and I just needed to serve the Lord. And it has been 18 years of that, of just absolutely serving the Lord. And I do it in business now. I do it on the personal side. I have done incredible things. I have an amazing relationship with my wife, right? I love her so much.
Thank you for sharing that and doing your best to summarize that. We spoke to a lot of things, a lot of heavy-hitting topics, and I resonate with that. I resonate with the struggle, and I resonate with that chokehold of feeling like you've reached the end of your rope, and really having that wrestling with your identity, not being wrapped up in money, businesses, buildings. God's had to get me there too. That's been a big part of my testimony. So thanks for sharing that. That's encouraging and inspiring for a young man like me to hear, because I wanted to make sure that I'm doing my part to do that. What you're talking about, I'm coming. I mean, I'm a pastor's kid, so I've been raised in it, but it took me a long time to give God my full yes. And there's an entire story behind all that.
Dude,
but
we were talking about it. We got out of here just about midnight last night after
Yeah.
Miss Kirkmeyer left. We talked about it last night.
we did.
We talked about it for 45 minutes after the podcast last night, the very thing he just said. This is not by happenstance that we're sitting here having this conversation right now. That was like verbatim what we talked about last night.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah.
People need to know the Lord's working.
Absolutely. All we want to do is point people to Him, and that's what we're going to do our best to continue to do with all that we've got going on here. And just as we're starting to wrap up here, I'll turn it over for you to be able to say anything else that you'd like to say in closing. But I would also like to invite you to just tell people where they can find you, where they can follow you, where they can get in touch with you, support your campaign, learn more information. Where can they find you?
The first thing I'll say is 1 John 3:16. Everybody goes to John 3:16, but 1 John 3:16 is the other, like a forgotten 3:16, and it says that God gave up His Son, so we should be willing to give up ourselves, give up our lives for our brothers. It says brothers. I think it's brothers and sisters. It's a community, right?
Amen.
And we're meant to be hunters, not hunter. And as men, we spend so much time standing alone that we forget about the idea of what can happen if we stand together. So, I mean, I think that's the thing that we should be grasping onto right now, is that we're more powerful together, especially men in Christ. And we got to be authentic, right? We all go to this men's group where someone says everything's great and it's really not great, right? So we got to get to a place where we're authentic and honest in our lives, so that we can actually stand together and become that strong force that can turn the tide on our community and our country. So Oltmann2026.com, Oltmann 2026.com. And I haven't really done any fundraising because God has blessed me, so I can fund the whole thing myself if I needed to, all the way to the end. And I want to be a good steward of people's capital, so I don't want to take money from people knowing how hard they work for it, and not do something good with it. So I've been a little less. I do like it when people support me, but just making sure that I'm not going to go out and do something with that. I'm going to walk this path as long as I think that God's telling me to walk it. And then whether or not I become the candidate or someone else becomes a candidate, I can tell you that the candidates are having a conversation on how do we unite, regardless of where it goes at the assembly and everything else. How do we unite in such a way that we can have shared purpose and that we can not fight against each other? So you won't see me say anything bad about most of the candidates, because frankly, I think that there's a way that forward where we can lead together, as long as we go into the community and we listen to the people in the community.
That's beautiful. I'm very happy and relieved to hear that. That's what it's all about.
That's been a big question for you.
That's been the most important question for me, I think. I put it on you. That's okay. What do you have to say in closing?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. All these names up here on this wall, we've enjoyed every conversation. I want to be very clear. I'm not going to talk it to death. We've enjoyed every conversation. Everybody's brought something different. Here's the one thing that everybody has agreed upon, at least this much, is we got a major problem in Colorado. It's sitting up on the hill, and we got to get it changed. And if it doesn't happen in this midterm, we're lost. We're done. We're done. So, yeah.
So we close out every episode in prayer. Sir, it would be an absolute honor if you wouldn't mind to close us out. If not, I can do it.
I close every one of my podcasts with a prayer.
Well, good.
All right.
Let's get it.
Father God, we are so grateful. We are overwhelmed with the blessings that you give us on a daily basis. We're overwhelmed with the challenges that you put in front of us, and we're grateful for even those challenges. We're grateful for the people that are in our lives, and we're grateful for the pathway that you've put us on individually to be born at a time such as this. We also recognize that there's a huge amount of challenges that we face today, and there's fear, and there's this anxiety of what's going to come next, and where does this lead us? And we know that leads us back to this place of restoration, that the ultimate goal is to restore you to our community, to our children, to our country, and even the world. So, Father, we just ask that you give us the ability to see the light, to see the path, to serve in whatever capacity we need to serve individually and collectively. Help us, Father, we can set aside petty differences, that we can come together as one, that we can see ourselves not as wearing a blue jersey or a red jersey or just no jersey at all, but as people that have things that we need inside of our communities and inside of our country. Help us, Father, we can get to a place of peace. Please bless our leaders, bless President Trump, bless the people that work underneath him, that they can set aside their interests to seek accountability, to seek consequences, and to drive out this evil that we've been dealing with, not just in our community, but around the country. Father, we are grateful. We are thankful for just the ability to love you and for the sacrifices that have been made before us. And we leave this before you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, sir.
Last thing, sirs, if you just don't mind to sign the wall for us, then
Yeah, do that.
that'd be much appreciated.
I carry a gun 'cause